شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
It's a pleasure to have you once again, Shaykhna, and to benefit, inshallah. So, inshallah, hopefully you can benefit us and give us a quick recap of the last episode that we had together.
So the last episode we discussed more in detail the family of Abraham.
Yes.
Because before that we talked about the four main families. So we went into a dua mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surat Al-Baqarah.
Yes. رَبَّنَا وَجْعَلْنَا مُسْلِمِينَ.
Where Prophet Ibrahim and Prophet Ismail make a dua. And in that dua mentions what? رَبَّنَا وَابْعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِنْهُمْ. Oh Allah, send to them a messenger from them.
Yes.
Who will recite to them the verses and teach them the book and the wisdom and praise them or make them known.
Yes.
And we compared that with similar wording in Surah Al-Jum'ah,
yes,
where Allah هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم. So very similar wording, but we saw that there's a difference in the word tazkiyah, where in the dua of Prophet Ibrahim that was put at the very end, and in Surah Al-Jum'ah it was put after the recitation of the verses. They will be purified, then He will teach them the book and the wisdom.
Ahsant.
Okay, and God says why? Because before that they were in clear and great deviation.
Yes.
And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, and there was others from amongst the Meccans that did not join them. And according to what we've been talking about, did not join them in deviation. And it makes sense when we connect it to the dua of Prophet Abraham that there's this special group of people that they were clearly not in deviation. They were at the highest levels of taslim to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yes.
And so they received a special type of attention, let's say, from the Holy Prophet, even when it comes to the teaching them the book and the wisdom. And so that's basically that was what we concluded, that there was a special group of people from the line of Ibrahim alayhi salam. The Prophet was close to them. These people were at the highest level of taslim before the revelation. Okay, then the Prophet was chosen from amongst this group, made into a messenger, sent to them, recited to them the verses, taught them the book and the wisdom, and made them known. Then the Prophet, on the other hand, was also sent to the Meccans in general.
Yes.
Right? And he recited to them the verses, he purified them, then he taught them the book and the wisdom.
Yes.
And like I said, because before that they were in great deviation. So in the previous episodes, we've mentioned multiple times of verses where there's a group of people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given a special status to other than the Prophet. And we're talking about the akhirin, so we're not talking about the previous prophets anymore. And one of the verses was, we highly emphasized, was that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given this group of people, this chosen few, He gave them the book as an inheritance. And He said this is not a physical inheritance. The bare minimum is that this is the deeper knowledge of the book and the wisdom. Bare minimum. Okay, so then we kind of understand when we look at Prophet Ibrahim's dua and the verses 2 and 3 from Surah Jum'ah, we see, okay, there is a group of people who were very special before revelation and even after revelation. And the way that they received the knowledge from the Prophet was special. Let's say special. It was unique and it was different than what all the general public received. Okay, now we want to continue. We have a verse from chapter 4, verse 54, that continues describing similar to what we've been talking about. If you would like to read it for us,
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أم يحسدون الناس على ما آتاهم الله من فضله فقد آتينا آل إبراهيم الكتاب والحكمة وآتيناهم ملكا عظيما. Or do they envy the people for what Allah has given them out of His grace? We have certainly given the progeny of Abraham the book and wisdom, and we have given them great authority.
So here we see also that it's talking about Al Ibrahim, continuing what we were referring to. This also reminds us of the verse, the dua of Prophet Ibrahim. It also reminds us of Surah Jum'ah, ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ. Over here, the people have hasad of the fadl that Allah has given to these people, the favor that Allah has given to these specific people. Okay? And what did God give to the family, the Al-Ibrahim? The kitab and the hikmah that we've been talking about. So then later in the chapter, I think a verse down, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kind of describes more, and it reminds us of the companions of the right and the companions of the left, where there were those who followed and those who rejected from following, right? So, and we spoke about that there's a group of people, I keep coming back to this, that Allah gave them the book as an inheritance. Not to everybody, to this specific group. And when we connect, it's that close group to the Holy Prophet. So now, if you could read, it's from verse 55, you know, how Allah continues this topic.
It says, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فمنهم من آمن به ومنهم من صد عنه وكفى بجهنم سعيرا.
So, but some of them believed in it and some of them rejected it, right? So, what does that remind us of? Like we've been saying, companions of the right, companions of the left. So there are those who believed in this authority, this supreme authority, and this position and status that those Sabiqun have in the time of Prophet Muhammad. And there are those who had envy and jealousy and those who rejected it. And we know where they're going, right? So let's continue with more about this. There's a special group that has this supreme level of authority that we must follow, and through them we gain our guidance and we are guided to the straight path. If we go now to a verse, chapter 22, verse 78, where this also will show us another angle, a perspective of their authority and their position.
It says, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وجاهدوا في الله حق جهاده وهو اجتباكم وما جعل عليكم في الدين من حرج. Continue.
Yes.
ملة أبيكم إبراهيم هو سماكم المسلمين من قبل وفي هذا ليكون الرسول شهيدا عليكم وتكونوا شهداء على الناس.
أحسنتم. And strive hard in the way of Allah. Okay, and a striving as is due to Him. He has brought you close to Him. See, these words are all similar to the ones that were already. He has brought you close to Him and has not laid upon you a hardship in religion. The faith of your father Abraham. Okay, he named you Muslims before. What does that remind us of? The dua we've been talking about. وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِنَا أُمَّةً مُسْلِمَةً لَكَ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kind of connects with that. هُوَ سَمَّاكُمُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِ. And in this, that the messenger may be a bearer of witness to you, and you may be bearers of witness to the people. Okay? So the messenger is a witness, like if we want to say authority or status here, the messenger is a witness upon this group of people that God is speaking to. And this group of people, they are witnesses over the masses. Okay? So this gives us another level of, of their status and their importance. All right? Now we continue. There's also another similar verse that mentions the same status, right? But the ironic and significant point about this verse we just recited is where God mentions that your father Abraham, he's the one who named you Muslims. So the next chapter is chapter 2, verse 132. Shaykhna, if you would recite it.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وكذلك جعلناكم أمة وسطا لتكونوا شهداء على الناس ويكون الرسول عليكم شهيدا.
So here what we have is God is also describing this, and He says, we made you, I'm paraphrasing, we made you this nation and this middle course or middle nation that you would be witnesses over the people and the messenger would be a witness above you. This is the same level of authority. We're the messenger above this special group and this special group over everybody else. Now, yes, many people are going to understand this, that oh, this is just referring to the general Muslim public, you know.
Yeah.
Just like God gave the Quran as an inheritance to the general Muslims. But we understand that it's a bit far-fetched and it's hard to accept that easy. Now, I just want to go back to a point here that maybe we didn't focus on hard enough, which is we said that the Prophet's role, according to the verse in the Dua of Prophet Ibrahim, was to make this group known, to praise them, or make them known. Aside from all of the other descriptions that these verses we read describe this special group in the Akhirin, you know, the knowledge they have of the Quran, you know, how you must follow them in order to be guided. Did the Prophet make a certain group of individuals known and praise them? Did he do that? I mean, we can go on in Shia, Sunni books, and all types of books, and we can see very clearly, undisputedly, that the Prophet praised certain individuals far more than he praised anybody else.
Yes. Right?
To the point where, you know, all hadith books of Muslims, from Sunnah and Shia, even the hadith of the enemies of Ahlul Bayt are full of praises from the Prophet, how he praised the Ahlul Bayt, right? And we'll go into a few examples about that in a second, but also the descriptions we mentioned, you know, the knowledge of the book.
Yes.
Just that point. When we go back and look at our Islamic history, from all the companions from the Muhajirun and the Ansar, who had knowledge of the book? Who stood out for their knowledge and their wisdom of the Quran, the revelation? Who did the Prophet focus on the most and give them knowledge, special knowledge that he did not give everybody else? And there's no dispute that there is a single individual that the Prophet gave extra time to when it came to giving him knowledge and wisdom, right? I mean, even if you look in the different books of description of this Kitabu Ali that people sometimes mention, the Book of Ali. What is the Book of Ali? And you go and it's the Book of Ali is a book that Imam Ali wrote with his own hand. Yeah. Okay, and what was it? He was writing down the words of the Prophet, where he had private gatherings with the Prophet after Fajr and after Maghrib, to the point where even the companions got jealous and they complained to Prophet Muhammad, you know, why are you only having your private gatherings with him? What about us? And he told them clearly, I'm paraphrasing, that it's not me who was having talking privately with Ali. ولكن it was God. It's through the command of God. But bare minimum, we all know, according to historical records, there's no dispute that the Imam had a great amount of time, of private time with the Prophet, where he was receiving knowledge. And he was even writing this knowledge. And even the Imam asked the Prophet, why am I writing? Do you fear that I will forget? And he said, no, it's not. I know you will not forget, but write this for your shuraka, for your partners. And this reminds me of multiple ahadith we have from Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, the 5th Imam and the 6th Imam, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, where they actually take out this book of Ali and they show it to the companions at the time. When they had certain questions, they told them basically, come here, look. And they point out and they said, this is the handwriting of my grandfather Ali ibn Abi Talib. Okay, where it's full of knowledge given to the Imam from the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that's just the knowledge aspect. We can go on and on with the other virtues, right? And if it comes to deviation, we all know Imam Ali alayhi salam was nowhere near any form of idol worship, right? Even his own enemies, they recognize this and they made it very clear.
Yes.
Right? And when it comes to revelation and being close to revelation, who was closer to revelation than Imam Ali? Anybody else, right? He was the one who was there at the moment that revelation first began. He describes the event to us. Even the part that when Prophet Muhammad first, Laylat al-Qadr took place, and then months later the Bi'tha took place, Imam Ali was with the Prophet, right? And the Prophet was giving him knowledge. And this is all, the books are filled with this information. I'm just paraphrasing here.
Yes.
And we can go on and on with, for example,
there's
I'm
many
I'm thinking of Ghadir right now, right? And Hadith al-Thaqalain.
Yes.
Think of Ghadir where, the verse says, today we have completed your religion. right? And some people are like, oh, that's kind of far-fetched. It's hard to believe. What does the imamah of Imam Ali really have to do? Is it really that big or priority in religion? Yes, it is, right? What have we been showing? That according to the verses, we must follow a certain group of people. If we reject them, if we do not follow them, number one, we won't be on Surat Al-Mustaqim. Number two, we will be burning in hellfire, right? That's the difference between the companions of the left and the companions of the right. We can also, when it comes to the, guidance, you can't, according to the verse, like Surat Al-Fatihah was our starting point.
Yes.
Why do I have to follow this individual or that individual to get closer to God? Well, it's not my choice or your choice. God has set up the system that way. And if you're confused, go back and read Surat Al-Fatihah again, right? You want to be on Surat Al-Mustaqim, then you have to be on the Surat Al-Ladhina An'amta Alayhim. It's not your choice. Actually, we go back a few verses. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. You alone we worship, and you alone we ask for help.
Yes.
So sometimes people accuse us of some form of shirk by following these individuals or giving the imams this status. Let's go look at the verse. What does it say? You alone we worship. That's Tawheed, right? Yes. We only worship God. And we only ask God for help. And God is actually teaching us also, right? So, okay, what should we ask God for help in? Well, the next verse tells us.
Guidance.
Ask Him to guide us on the straight path.
Yes.
Now, how do we find the straight path? God also tells us it's the path of those that God has bestowed His favor upon. So we can go around the bush as much as we want, but we have to follow those individuals in order to follow God's system and to obey our God and His messenger. Like we read, if you obey Allah and His messenger, you will be with those whom Allah has bestowed His favor upon. And, we can go on and on from the Quran itself. And we should do this. We should actually focus on the Quran, on these topics related to the imamah, and see how much, first of all, the Quran has, a great amount. I don't want to give like a mathematical fraction. The Quran has a great emphasis on the imamah, this whole system we're talking about. No. But we as believers, we must become more familiar with the Quran and how much we can analyze these verses and understand more about our belief, right? Now, as for Sabiqeen, this came to me right now. We're talking about Sabiqeen in multiple verses, right? So we're talking about Sabiqeen. Did anybody claim to be from the Sabiqeen or a special status of the Sabiqeen? Well, we have a very famous quote from Imam Ali alayhi salam where he says, "Ana awwal as-sabiqeen."
I am the first.
I am the first of the Sabiqeen.
Yes.
Okay? Now, and again, like I said, we can go, mashallah, we have a lot of information and historical reports about all the individuals at the time. Who can we find fits these descriptions of the verses other than the Ahlul Bayt? There's a lot of great people from the companions. I'm not doubting that.
Yes.
But who can fit these descriptions? Who can fall under this category that we've been talking about according to the verses? I'm so sorry, but we're very limited. Yes. And now we understand why ثُلَّةٌ مِّنَ الْأَوَّلِينَ وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنَ الْآخَرِينَ. Another thing that comes to mind is when we look at the Muslim rulers, let's say, okay, we got the 12 imams on one side and we have the khulafa on the other side. Yeah. And if we were to compare and contrast almost like on a timeline, okay, in a period that we had 11 imams, from Imam Ali alayhi salam to Imam Hassan al-Askari, there was 33 Sunni khulafa, not including Imam Ali. Okay? So if we put Imam Ali with them as number 4, there would be 34.
Yes.
In a period of time, they had 33 khulafa. We have our 11 imams, right? And we just look at the rulers. Are they on a straight line? I mean, they themselves killed each other, right? There's just their methodology, their policies, it was all over the place.
Yes, it was different.
It was to the point where you had in 1 year multiple khulafa dying.
Yes.
All right? Or one khalifa kills the other. And their methodologies, the Umayyads were toppled by the Abbasids. They're clearly not on the same team.
Yes.
We look at our imams, the same line, not just biologically. like the policies, the way of life, okay? And there's just another side point. I mean, there has to be some interference from God, some divine interference. When you can prophesize, that your lineage, 12 generations down will be on one line, that is very hard. Or when the Prophet Abraham alayhi salam, when he's prophesizing this, almost 2,000 or about 2,200 years before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa sallam, actually more than that. Yeah, more than that. So when he's prophesizing the coming of this nation of Muslims and describing them, there's no way mathematically that can take place.
Definitely.
Right? When we just look at how people are misguided or deviate over time, you can't even guarantee your own your own sons and daughters being staying on the straight path, and then guaranteeing their sons and their sons and their sons going down the line. That's very hard. There has to be some divine interference. So what we understand from concluding everything we're talking about is that this group of people that God has chosen them. God has given them, favor and bounty and knowledge and status and authority, right? It's not us. God has given them this level, right? And I want to end with one hadith where Imam Ali is described as being what? The divider between heaven and hell.
Yes.
For some people, this is very hard to accept or even comprehend. But I just want to remind them of what we discussed when we were speaking about Malik Yawmuddin and the companions of the right, companions of the left, and the Sabiqun. That if you follow the Sabiqun, you go to heaven. And if you do not follow the Sabiqun, you're going to hell. Now, if Imam Ali, as we believe, is the first of the Sabiqun, then yes, that is true. That is how the equation works. You follow the Sabiqun, and the first of them is Imam Ali alayhi salam. You are on Surat Al-Mustaqim. You are going to heaven. You do not follow, according to the verses, I'm sorry, there's no other destination for you other than hellfire. Now, inshallah, in the future there's much more verses, like I said, that we can analyze and go into depth, discussing and describing the people in the time of the Prophet and after. Right? Yes. That's what we need to analyze, because that applies to us. And that's very important for our guidance. So I'll leave it there, inshallah. And inshallah, the viewers this is just an attempt for all of us to try to analyze the Quran at a different level, to utilize the holy month of Ramadan, which is the month in which the Quran was revealed. And the Quran is a book of guidance. So we should really use this month to get closer to making sure and guaranteeing that we are guided and we are on the straight path, and to use this book, for guidance. The Quran is a book of guidance. So inshallah, we can really emphasize and use the holy month of Ramadan to gain a closer relationship to Quran and to be closer to guidance. Inshallah.
Ahsantum Shaykhna. Thank you very much. And inshallah, we can continue to derive lessons and inspiration from the Holy Quran and from people such as yourself who seek the knowledge. And with that, inshallah, we'll conclude this episode. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله.